In an extraordinary mystical experience given to Saint Bridget, Saint Agnes reveals instructions on how to live well and how to avoid living a bad life that is displeasing to God. The saint also speaks of the complete surrender of everything for God's sake. Virgo Potens presents Prophecies and Revelations of Saint Bridget of Sweden, Book 4, Chapter 17. Agnes speaks to Saint Bridget. Did you see Lady Pride in her carriage of pride today? The bride answers her, I saw her, and I got upset, because flesh and blood, dust and dirt, was looking to be praised instead of humbling herself as she ought rightly to do. Such a display means nothing other than a lavish wasting of God's gifts, mere vulgar adulation, a trial to the righteous, a misery to the poor, a provocation to God, a forgetting of one's nature, an aggravation of one's future judgment, and the loss of souls. Saint Agnes answers, My daughter, be happy that you have been saved from things like that. Let me tell you about a carriage in which you can rest securely. The carriage where you should sit is fortitude and patience in suffering. When people begin to keep the flesh in check and to entrust all their will to God, then either the mind is troubled by pride, puffing people up above and beyond themselves, as though they were righteous and had become like God, or else impatience and lack of discernment break them, so that they either fall back into their old habits, or fail in strength, and so become unfit for the work of God. This is why a discerning patience is necessary, so that a person does not relapse impatiently, or persevere undiscerningly, but, rather, adapts to his or her own capacity and circumstances. The first wheel of this carriage is a wholehearted intention to surrender everything for the sake of God, and to desire nothing but God. Many there are who give up temporal possessions in order to avoid the bother, but keep enough for their use and desire. Their wheel is not easily steered or guided, for when they feel the pinch of poverty, they desire adequate comfort, and when problems weigh on them, they demand prosperity. When humiliation tires them, they murmur against God's providence and seek to obtain honors. When asked to do something that goes against their inclinations, they desire their freedom. Accordingly, a person's will is pleasing to God when it seeks nothing of its own, both in good times and in bad. The second wheel is humility. This makes people regard themselves as unworthy of any good thing, keeping their sins in mind at all times, and looking on themselves as guilty in God's sight. The third wheel is a wise love for God. A wise love for God obviously belongs to people who examine themselves and detest their vices, who are saddened by the sins of their neighbors and relatives, but rejoice in their spiritual progress toward God, who do not want their friends to live for enjoyment and comfort, but to serve God, and who are wary of their friends' worldly advancement, in case it entails offenses against God. Such, then, is the wise love that detests vice, that does not fawn on people in order to gain favor or honor, but loves those people more who are seen to be more fervent in their charity for God. The fourth wheel is the discerning restraint of the flesh. A married person may reason in this manner. Look, the flesh is pulling me about inordinately. If I live according to the flesh, I know for certain that I will anger the Creator of the flesh, who is able to wound and enfeeble, to kill and to give life. Therefore, for the love and fear of God, I will restrain my flesh with a good will. I will live in a decent and orderly way to the honor of God. A person with such thoughts, who also seeks the help of God, has a will that is acceptable to God, if he or she belongs to a religious order and reasons thus: "Look, the flesh is pulling me toward pleasure, and I even have the place, the time, the means, and the age to enjoy it, yet with God's help, and for the sake of my holy vows, I will not sin just to gain a momentary pleasure. I made a great vow to God. I entered poor, and shall depart poorer, and undergo judgment for each and every action. Therefore I will abstain so as not to offend my God, or scandalize my neighbor, or do myself injury." Abstinence like that deserves a great reward. Another person may be living amid honors and pleasures, and may reason in this way: "Look, I have plenty of everything, but there are needy poor, and we all have one God. What have I done to deserve what I have, or what have they done not to deserve it? What, after all, is the flesh but food for worms? What are all these pleasures but a source of nausea and sickness, a waste of time, and an inducement to sin? Therefore I shall keep my flesh in check, so that worms do not run riot in it, and so that I do not receive a heavier sentence, or waste my time of penance. Perhaps my poorly trained flesh will not be easily bent to the coarse fare of a pauper, but I shall withdraw it by degrees from certain delicacies that it can easily do without, so that it gets what it needs, but nothing beyond that." Someone with such thoughts, and who makes an effort to act on them according to his or her ability, can be called both confessor and martyr, for it is a kind of martyrdom to have access to pleasure and not to make use of it, to live in honor, yet to despise honor, to have a great reputation, yet to think little of oneself. Such a wheel is very pleasing to God. Well, my daughter, I have described for you the image of a carriage. Its driver is your angel. So long as you do not shake off his bridle and yoke from your neck, that is, so long as you do not dismiss his saving inspirations by opening up your senses and your heart to vain or obscene things. Now I want to tell you about the kind of carriage in which that lady was seated. That carriage is obviously impatience. Her impatience with God, and with her fellow man, and with herself. She is impatient with God when she criticizes his secret decisions, for things do not go as well for her as she would like. She maligns her fellow man, for she cannot get at his possessions. She is moreover impatient with herself, for she impatiently reveals the hidden things of her heart. The first wheel of this carriage is pride, in that she gives preference to herself and is judgmental of others. She despises the lowly and is ambitious for honor. The second wheel is disobedience to God's precepts. This leads her to make excuses in her heart for her own weaknesses, to make light of her guilt, to be presumptuous in her heart, and to defend her own wickedness. The third wheel is greediness for worldly possessions. This leads her to spend her possessions wastefully, to neglect and forget her own situation and the coming world, to fret at heart, to be lukewarm in the love of God. The fourth wheel is her self-love. This bars out reverence and fear of God and distracts her attention from her own death and judgment. The driver of this carriage is the devil. He fills her with audacity and glee in every undertaking he inspires in her. The two horses drawing the carriage are the hope of a long life and the intention to keep on sinning until the very end. The bridle is her guilty fear about going to confession. Through her hope of a long life and her intention to persevere in sin, This guilty fear pulls the spirit from the straight path and ladens it so heavily with sin that neither fear nor shame nor warning can make her get up. Just when she thinks she is on firm footing, she will sink down to the depths unless the grace of God comes to her aid. Addition. Christ speaks of the same lady. She is a viper with the tongue of a harlot, the bile of dragons in her heart, and a bitter poison in her flesh. Her eggs will therefore be poisonous. Happy are they who have no experience of the burden of them. In an extraordinary mystical experience, Saint Bridget praises the virtues and spectacular beauty of the most blessed Virgin. Our Lady grants many graces, as well as many other good things, both from herself and from the apostles and saints. Then the Lord compares his mother to a goldsmith. Finally, in another heavenly vision, Saint Agnes offers spiritual warfare advice and the importance of not relapsing in sin. Virgo Potens presents Prophecies and Revelations of Saint Bridget of Sweden, Book 4, Chapters 18 through 20. Chapter 18. O sweet Mary, says Saint Bridget, blessed are you with an eternal blessing, for you were a virgin before childbirth, a virgin after childbirth, a virgin together with your spouse, and undoubted virgin for a doubting spouse. So blessed are you, for you are mother and virgin, God's dearest one, purer than all the angels, the one most full of faith in the company of the apostles, alone in the bitterest sorrow of your heart, whose abstinence outshines that of all the confessors, whose chaste continence excels that of all the virgins. So may all things up above and down below bless you, for through you God the Creator became man. Through you the righteous find grace, sinners find pardon, the dead find life, the exiled return to their homeland. The Virgin answers, It is written that when Peter bore witness to my Son and called him the Son of God, he received the answer, Blessed are you, Simon, for body and blood have not revealed this to you. So I say now, this salutation was not revealed to you by your bodily soul, but by him who was without beginning and is without end. Be therefore humble, and I will be merciful to you. John the Baptist, as he promised, will be gentle to you. Peter will be mild, and Paul strong as a giant. John the Baptist is going to say to you, Daughter, sit on my lap. Peter will say, My daughter, open your mouth, and I shall feed you with sweet food. Paul will dress you up and arm you with the arms of love. And I, who am the mother, will present you to my Son. But, my daughter, you can understand all this even in a spiritual sense. John, whose name means the grace of God, denotes true obedience. He was and is sweet and gentle indeed, sweet to his parents for his wondrous grace, sweet to humankind for his extraordinary preaching, sweet to God for his holiness of life and obedience. He was obedient in his youth, obedient in fortune and misfortune, obedient and constantly humble when he might have been honored, obedient, too, in his death. This is why obedience says, Sit on my lap. That means, rise to lowly things, and you will have lofty ones. Give up bitter things, and you will get sweet ones. Give up your own will if you want to be little. Despise earthly things, and you will become heavenly. Despise superfluity, and you will have spiritual abundance. Peter denotes holy faith, the faith of the Holy Church. Just as Peter remained steadfast until the end, so too the faith of the Holy Church will remain steadfast without end. This is why Peter, that is, the Holy Faith, says, "Open your mouth and you will have good food." This means, open the intellect of your soul, and in the Holy Church you will find the sweetest of foods, that is, the very body of the Lord in the sacrament of the altar, the new and the old law, the teachings of the doctors, the patience of the martyrs, the humility of the confessors, the pureness of the virgins, and indeed the foundation of all the virtues. Accordingly, seek the holy faith in the Church of St. Peter. Keep in mind the sought-after faith, and then put it into practice. Paul denotes patience, for he was zealous toward those who fought against holy faith, joyful in hardships, long-suffering in hope, patient in infirmities, compassionate with those in pain, humble in virtues, hospitable with the poor, merciful toward sinners, the teacher and master of all, persevering in the love of God until the end. Thus Paul, that is, patience, will arm you with the arms of the virtues, for true patience, founded upon and strengthened by the examples and patience of Christ and his saints, enkindles the love of God in the heart, makes the spirit burn for strong action, renders a man humble, mild, merciful, zealous for heaven, mindful of himself, and persevering in the tasks undertaken. And so, the Mother of Mercy shall introduce to my son everyone whom obedience nourishes in the lap of humility, everyone whom the faith feeds with the food of sweetness, everyone whom patience dresses in the arms of virtue, and my son will crown that person with his sweet crown. In him is incomprehensible strength, incomparable wisdom, unspeakable goodness, wonderful love. Then no one will be able to snatch that person away from his hand. But, my daughter, though I am speaking to you, yet by you I mean all of those who follow the holy faith with deeds of love. Just as by the one man, Israel, all Israelites were meant, so by you are understood all the true faithful. Saint Bridget's words to Our Lady in praise of her virtue and beauty, and the Virgin's answer confirming her praise, and the son's comparison of his mother to a goldsmith. Chapter 19. Sweet Mary, fresh beauty, shining beauty, come and listen to me, so that my ugliness may be purified, and my love enkindled. Your beauty gives me 3 gifts to the head. First, the cleansing of the memory, so that God's words enter smoothly. Second, the pleasant retention of the words heard. Third, their zealous communication to one's neighbor. Your beauty also grants 3 things to the heart. First, it removes the heavy burden of sloth, when your love and humility are contemplated. Second, it brings tears to the eyes when your poverty and patient suffering are brought to mind. Third, it gives the heart a sweet inner fire when the memory of your devotion is sincerely recalled. Truly, my lady, you are the most precious beauty, the most desirable beauty, for you are the help given to the sick, the comforter in sorrow, everyone's mediator. Thus, all those who have heard that you would be born, and those who know you to have already been born, can surely exclaim, "Come, beauty most splendid, and light up our darkness. Come, beauty most precious, and take away our reproach. Come, beauty most sweet, and lessen our bitterness. Come, beauty most powerful, and undo our captivity. Come, beauty most fair, and destroy our foulness." Therefore, may such great beauty be blessed and reverenced. the beauty that all the patriarchs longed to see, of which all the prophets sang, in which all the elect rejoice. The mother answers, May God, my beauty, be blessed. It is He who has given you such words to speak. And so I tell you that the most ancient beauty, the eternal and highest beauty, which made and created me, shall be your comfort. The beauty that is oldest and yet new, renewing all things, which was in me and was born of me, shall teach you wonders. The most desirable beauty, which gives joy and delight to all, shall inflame the spirit of your love. So trust in God, for when the heavenly beauty appears, all earthly beauty will crumble and be regarded as dung. Then God's Son said to his mother, O blessed mother, you are like a goldsmith preparing a beautiful object. All those who see the object are filled with gladness and present precious stones or gold in order to perfect it. Thus, dear mother, you offer help to everyone struggling to rise to God, and leave no one without your consolation. You can therefore well be called the blood of the heart of God. Just as each member of the body receives life and strength from the blood, so too everyone comes to life again after sin and is made more fruitful before God through you. Saint Agnes's lesson to Saint Bridget about not relapsing and not advancing properly, and about the right way to begin or continue with abstinence, and about what kind of continence is pleasing to God. Chapter 20. Saint Agnes speaks. Daughter, stand firm and do not relapse. For a serpent lies at your heels ready to bite. Yet do not rush unduly ahead either, for the tip of a sharp lance is in front of you, and if you advance at the wrong speed, you will be wounded. What does a relapse mean, if not letting trials lead to regrets about having taken on a more austere and wholesome way of life, and to a desire of returning to old habits, and delighting the mind with dirty thoughts? Such thoughts, even if they give some pleasure to the mind, only obscure every good thing, and by degrees lead away from all goodness. Nor should you rush unduly ahead, that is, punish yourself beyond your strength, or imitate the good works of others beyond your capacity. God has ordained from eternity that heaven should be open to sinners through works of love and humility, yet by preserving moderation and discretion in every way. Now then, the envious devil persuades the imperfect man to fast beyond his strength, to promise to do unaccustomed things that he cannot manage, to desire to imitate more perfect models without considering his own strengths and weaknesses. The devil does this either in order that, when the man's strength fails him, he should continue with his badly begun vows out of human embarrassment rather than for the sake of God, or in order that he should quickly give up the struggle because of his indiscretion and weakness. For this reason, use as your measure your own self, that is, your strengths and weaknesses, since some people are stronger by nature, others weaker, some more fervent by the grace of God, others keener due to good habits. Hence, regulate your life in agreement with the advice of God-fearing men, so that the serpent does not sting you due to your thoughtlessness, and so that the poisonous tip of the sword, that is, the poisonous suggestion of the devil, does not delude your mind, so as to make you want to seem more than you are, or long to become something beyond your strength and powers. There are, indeed, some people who believe they can reach heaven by their own merits, and God spares them from the devil's temptations due to his hidden plan. There are others who think that they can make reparation to God for their transgressions with their own works. The error of all these is altogether damning, for even if a person were to kill his body 100 times over, he could not make up 1,000th of the account he owes to God, because it is God who gives us the ability and the will, seasons and health, who fills us with a desire for the good, who gives us riches and honor, who kills and gives life, raises up and lays low. All things are in his hand. Hence to him alone should all honor be given, and no one deserves to be counted for anything before God. Since you are wondering about the lady who came for indulgences but was corrupted, I answer you. There are some women who have the virtue of continence but do not love it. They experience neither a great longing for pleasure nor violent temptation. If honorable proposals of marriage were made to them, they would accept. However, since no great offers are made to them, they look down on lesser offers. In this way, continence sometimes gives rise to pride and presumption, which, by divine permission, leads to a fall, such as you have now heard. If a woman were so minded as not to want to be stained even once, not even if the whole world were offered her, it would be impossible for such a woman to be left to shame. If, however, in his secret justice, God permitted such a one to fall, it would rather lead to her reward than to sin, provided that she fell against her will. Know then that God is like an eagle that from on high views everything down below. If an eagle should see anything rising up from the ground, it immediately swoops down and snatches it. If it catches sight of something poisonous coming against it, it would pierce it like an arrow. If something unclean is dropped on it from above, it gets rid of it with a great shake, just like a goose does. God acts like that as well. If he sees human hearts rising against him due to the weakness of the flesh or the devil's temptations against the will of the Spirit, he immediately swoops down through an inspiration of contrition and penance, and brings it to naught, making the person return to God and come to himself again. If the poison of carnal desire or greed enters the heart, God quickly pierces the mind with the arrow of his love, so that the person does not persevere in sin and get separated from God. If some impurity of pride or the dirt of lust defiles the spirit, he shakes it quickly off, just like a goose, through constant faith and hope, so that the spirit does not become hardened in vice, or the soul that is joined to God become stained unto damnation. Therefore, my daughter, in all your feelings and actions, consider God's justice and mercy, and always keep the end in sight. In an extraordinary mystical experience, the Mother of God tells Saint Bridget that God's good servants should not stop preaching and admonishing people. In another heavenly vision, Christ reveals how human malice in modern times surpasses the cunning of the devil, and about how people are now quicker to sin than the devil is to tempt. The Lord then explains the sentence pronounced against such people. Virgo Potens presents Prophecies and Revelations of Saint Bridget of Sweden, Book 4, Chapters 21 through 22. Book 4, Chapter 21. Blessed are you, my God, who are three and one, three persons in one nature. You are goodness and wisdom itself. You are beauty and power itself. You are justice and truth itself. All things live and subsist through you. You are like a flower that grows alone in a field. All those who draw near to it receive sweetness for their palate, an uplift for their spirits, a delight for their eyes, and strength in every other limb. Likewise, all who come near to you become more beautiful by leaving sin behind, more wise by following your will rather than the flesh, more righteous by seeking the advantage of the soul and the glory of God. Therefore, most kind God, grant me to love that which pleases you, to resist temptations bravely, to scorn all worldly things, and to keep you constantly in my memory. The mother answers, This salutation came to you through the merits of good Jerome, who left false wisdom and found true wisdom, who scorned earthly honor and was rewarded with God himself. Happy is such a Jerome, happy those who imitate his life and doctrine. He was a lover of widows, a mirror for those advancing toward perfection, a teacher of all truth and purity. But tell me, my daughter, what is troubling you in your heart? She said, A thought occurred to me that said, If you are good, your goodness is enough for you. Why judge and admonish and teach your betters, something that belongs neither to your state nor position? This thought so hardens the spirit that it even neglects its own progress and grows completely cold to God's love. The Mother of God answers, This thought has also held back many advanced souls from God. The devil hinders good people from speaking to the wicked, so that they may not be brought to feel compunction. He also hinders them from speaking to the good, so that they will not be raised to a higher rank. For, when good people hear good doctrine, they are raised to a greater reward and a higher rank. For example, the eunuch who was reading Isaiah would have received one of the lesser punishments in hell, but Philip met him and taught him a shortcut to heaven, and so raised him up to a level of happiness. Likewise, Peter was sent to Cornelius. If Cornelius had died beforehand, he would indeed have come to a place of rest because of his faith. But then came Peter and led him to the gateway to life. Similarly, Paul came to Dennis and led him to the reward of blessedness. For this reason, the friends of God should not grow tired in God's service, but should labor on in order that the wicked may be made better, and that the good may attain a greater perfection. Anyone with the will to whisper in the ears of every passer-by that Jesus Christ truly is the Son of God, and who struggles as far as he or she can for the conversion of others, even though no one or only a few convert, will still obtain the same reward as if all of them had converted. I will show you this by means of a comparison. If, on the order of their Lord, 2 mercenaries dig through the hard rock of a mountain, and one of them were to find choice gold there, but the other none, both of them would be deserving of the same wages because of their work and their intention. In the same way, Paul, who converted many people, and the other apostles, who converted fewer, were nevertheless all united in their intention. God's dispensation, however, remains hidden. One should therefore never give up, not even if only a few or none at all are open to God's words. As the thorn protects the rose, and the donkey carries his master, so too the devil, like a thorn of sin, is as useful to the elect through the tribulations he causes as thorns are to roses. In this way, they are not stupidly overcome by the presumption of their hearts. Thus, just like a donkey, he conveys them to God's consolation and a greater reward. Book 4, Chapter 22. The Son of God speaks. If I could get upset, I would rightly be able to say now, I regret having made humankind. They have become like animals that of their own free will run into the nets. However much you cry out to them, they still follow their own selfish appetites. And not all the blame can be put on the devil's violent attempts on humankind. No, rather, the people themselves outstrip his malice. Like hunting dogs that are first led on leashes, but then, once they are accustomed to catching and devouring animals, speedily reach the prey ahead of their leader, so also humankind, now accustomed to sinning and fascinated by it, is quicker to sin than the devil is to tempt. That is not strange. It has been a long time since the apostolic see, the head of the world, was pleasing to God by its sanctity of life and example, as it was in earlier times, and all the other members have therefore been made weak and listless. They do not consider the reason why God in his riches became poor and needy, in order to teach us to scorn perishable things, and to love heavenly ones. Man is poor by nature, but has become rich by means of false riches. This is what everyone tries to imitate, and few are found who do not imitate it. Hence the plowman shall come from the Almighty. Whetted by the wisest one, he does not seek property or beautiful bodies, nor has any respect for the power of the mighty, nor fears the threats of princes, nor is swayed by human favor. He shall sow human flesh and raze to the ground the homes of the spirits. He shall deliver bodies to maggots, and souls to the ones whom they served. Therefore, may my friends, to whom I am sending you, labor with courage and with haste. For what I am telling you will not take place in the last days, as I said before, but in these very days. Many of those yet living will see with their own eyes the fulfillment of the scripture that says, May their wives be widows, and their sons fatherless, and they shall lose all that they desire. However, I, merciful God, shall receive all those that come to me in humility. I shall give myself to those who fulfill the works of righteousness. For it is right to clear out the house in which the king shall enter, wash the glass so that the drink may be clear, to thresh the grain briskly from its husks, and to press down hard on whatever is being molded into a form so that it attains the shape of the form. As summer comes after winter, so too I shall grant consolation after their hardships to those who long to be as little children, and who place more value on the things of heaven than on those of earth. However, just as man is not born and dies at one and the same time, so all this will be fulfilled in its own time. Know too that I intend to treat some people according to the common proverb. The whip will spur him on. The pain will compel him to speed up. I will treat others as it is written. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it. To a third set of people I shall speak soothingly and inspiringly. Come, ignorant and simple persons, and I shall give you a mouth and a wisdom such as the tongue-waggers will not be able to oppose. This is what I have already done in these days. I have filled the simple with my wisdom, and they are proof against the learned. I cast out the boastful and mighty, and they quickly subsided. That is no wonder, for I commanded the wise to cut off the serpents' tongues, as you heard, and they refused. Not even their mother, who was the scourge of the commons, was willing to quench their throats in order to quench the fire of desire kindled in her children's hearts, as I bade. This is why I have cut them down in their season of happiness, and have cut off their own tongues. How do you discern the angels from the demons, the good spirit from the bad spirit? Stay tuned for St. Bridget of Sweden's answer. In an extraordinary mystical experience, St. Bridget witnesses a conversation between the Mother of God and St. John the Evangelist. This heavenly vision provides 7 signs that identify the good spirit, along with 7 sides that reveal the bad spirit. Virgo Potens presents Prophecies and Revelations of St. Bridget of Sweden, Book 4, Chapter 23. John the Evangelist said to God's Mother, "Hear me, Virgin and Mother of one Son, not several sons, Mother of the only begotten Son of God, the Fashioner and Redeemer of all things. Listen, I say, as you surely do listen, to how this man has been deceived by the devil, how he is struggling to obtain something impossible, and how in what matters he has been instructed by the spirit of lies, how far he has removed himself from God in his sheep's clothing, but with his lion's heart. I taught that there are 3 who bear witness in heaven and on earth, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The evil spirit, however, bears witness to this man that he has become completely holy. Yet the Father does not strengthen him with his power, nor does the Son visit him with his wisdom, nor does the Holy Spirit inflame him with his love. That is no wonder, for he aspires to power against the power of the Father. He wants to be wise against the wisdom of the Son. He is inflamed, but not as the Holy Spirit sets aflame. So ask your Son either to take him away soon, so that no more souls may be lost, or to humble him quickly for his errors." The mother answered, "Hear me then, Virgin, though you are male and not a female person. You are the one whom it pleased God to call away from the world through the easiest of deaths after my own. Indeed, it was as though I had fallen asleep when my soul and body were separated, but then I awoke in everlasting joy. No wonder, indeed, for I had suffered more bitterly than all others at my son's death, and it pleased God thus to separate me from the world through the easiest of deaths. But you were closest to me among the apostles, and the object of greater signs of affection than all the others. And my son's passion was bitterer for you than for the rest, because you beheld it at a closer distance than the others, and you also lived longer than the others, as if you became a martyr through the deaths of them all. It therefore pleased God to call you from the world through the easiest of deaths after my own, for the Virgin had been entrusted to a virgin. Therefore, what you asked for shall be done without delay. My daughter, let me show you what sort of person this man is of whom we are speaking. He is like a servant of that coin-maker, the devil. The devil melts down and then stamps his coin, that is, his servant, with his suggestions and temptations, until he has fashioned him after his liking. Once he has corrupted and twisted a person's will toward the pleasures of the flesh and the love of the world, he then impresses his image and signature on the person, and it becomes apparent enough from external signs who it is whom that person wholeheartedly loves. When a man carries out in act the desire of his mind, and wants to get more involved in worldly affairs than his state in life requires, and would do and desire even more things, if he were able, then he is shown to be the devil's perfect coin. You should realize, however, that God's coin differs from the devil's coin. God's coin is of gold, shining, pliable, and precious. Every soul with the stamp of God on it shines with divine love, is pliable in her patience, and precious in her continual good works. Accordingly, every good soul is melted down by God's power, and tested with many temptations. Through them the soul, contemplating her defects and her origins, as well as God's kindness and patience toward her, is rendered all the more precious to God, the more humble, patient, and conscientious she is found to be. The devil's coin, however, is of copper and lead. It is copper because it bears a likeness to gold. It is hard and pliable, yet not the way gold is. Likewise, the unrighteous soul seems to herself to be righteous, judges everyone, is more interested in herself than in others, is unpliable with respect to humble actions, soft in acting in her own interest, intractable in her own plans, admirable to the world, despicable to God. The devil's coin is also laden in that it is ugly, soft, and pliable, and heavy. Likewise, the unrighteous soul is ugly in her lustful desires, burdensome in her longing for the world, as pliable as a reed that bends in the direction of whatever the devil inspires in her mind, sometimes, indeed, being even more ready to do it than the devil is to tempt her to it. This is the disposition of the coin-maker's servant. He gets bored in keeping the observances of his rule, as he vowed, and he thinks up ways of gaining people's appreciation through a pretended holiness, all the while feeding his body sumptuously. The devil, then, soon filled his head with lies at night. They deluded him into believing impossible things that will not come to be. Instead, his life will be cut short, and he will not obtain the honor for which he so longs. Whenever one comes across an unknown coin, one sends it to a wise expert who has sufficient knowledge of its weight and shape. But where will we find such an expert? Even if we did find him, he may care little or nothing about whether the coin is counterfeit or genuine. There is only one solution in such a case, as I will explain by way of a comparison. If you handed a florin to a dog, it would not bother to take it. But if the florin were coated with fat, there is no doubt that the dog would take it then. The present case is like that. If you went to a theological expert and said, "That man is a heretic," he would not be bothered, for his love of God is altogether grown cold. However, if you said, "He has plenty of florins," then everyone would rush to him. Therefore, it will soon be as Paul says, "I will destroy and humble the wisdom of the wise, and I will exalt the humble." My daughter, you can recognize both the Holy Spirit and the unclean spirit through 7 signs. First, the Spirit of God makes a man deem the world worthless, and consider in his heart all worldly honor as mere air. Second, it endears God to the soul, and all delight in the flesh grows cold. Third, it inspires him to patience and to glorifying only in God. Fourth, it stimulates the mind to be loving and compassionate with one's neighbor and even with one's enemies. Fifth, it inspires him to all kinds of abstinence, even from licit things. Sixth, it makes him trust in God in the midst of hardships, and even to glory in hardships. Seventh, it gives him the desire of wanting to depart and to be with Christ, rather than to prosper in the world and become soiled. The evil spirit has 7 effects to the contrary. First, it makes the world seem sweet, and heaven distasteful. Second, it makes a man seek honors and forget about the meaning of his life. Third, it arouses hatred and impatience in the heart. Fourth, it makes him bold toward God and obstinate in his own plans. Fifth, it leads him to make light of his sins and to make excuses for them. Sixth, it inspires in him frivolity of mind and every carnal impurity. Seventh, it inspires in him the hope of a long life and a feeling of shame about going to confession. Guard your thoughts carefully, then, so that you do not get deceived by this evil spirit. Explanation. This was a priest of the Cistercian order who, after 18 years of apostasy, repented and returned to the monastery. He said that it was impossible for anyone to be damned, and denied that God spoke with anyone in this world, or that anyone could see the face of God prior to God's judgment. When Lady Bridget heard this, the Holy Spirit said to her, "Go and tell that brother this. Brother, you do not see as I do how the devil still keeps your mind and tongue tied even in your old age. God is eternal, and his reward is eternal. Therefore, return quickly and wholeheartedly to God and to the true faith, for you will assuredly not get up out of this bed but die. However, if you believe, you will be a vessel for God's honor." He was reduced to tears and thanked Lady Bridget, and he reformed his life so perfectly that, when his brothers were called together at the hour of his death, he told them, "O my brothers, I am assured that God, all-merciful, has accepted my contrition, and will grant me pardon. Pray for me, because I believe everything that the Holy Church believes." Then, after having received God's sacraments, he passed away. The Holy Virgin's words to Saint Bridget about how God's servants should behave toward impatient people, and about how pride is likened to a vat. Chapter 24. The Mother of God speaks. When a vat of beer is heated up and starts to swell and rise, it steams and foams up, sometimes more, sometimes less, and then suddenly settles down again. People standing around the vat understand that these exhalations quickly sink down, and that they arise due to the strength of the beer, and are a way of releasing the heat. So they wait patiently for it to end, and for the beer or the wine to be ready. Two things happen when people standing around the vat put their noses too close to the bubbles. They suffer either a violent sneezing or a bad headache. It is the same in the spiritual life. It sometimes happens that some people's hearts swell and rise due to the pride and impatience of their minds. When virtuous men see such a swelling up, they understand that it proceeds either from spiritual instability or carnal motives. Therefore, they put up patiently with that person's insulting words and look toward the end, knowing that the calm follows the storm, and that patience is stronger than a besieger of cities, since it conquers the man within, which is the most difficult thing to do. There are, however, those who are overly impatient, and they repay insult for insult, paying no attention to the glorious reward of patience, nor to the contemptibility of worldly favor. These people incur an illness of mind due to their impatient temptations. They bring their noses too close to the bubbling vat, that is, they take the insults, which are nothing but air, too much to heart. So, whenever any of you see people being impatient, guard your tongues with God's help, and do not leave off doing the good work you have begun because of impatient words. Pretend instead, as far as justice allows, that you have not heard what you have heard, until those people who are looking for an argument say explicitly what they mean in their hearts. Thanks for stopping by and watching my video to the end. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Doing so really helps me to reach more souls. If you enjoyed this video or think that this work may be helpful for others, please consider supporting me through Patreon. Or, if you would prefer making a one-time contribution, just click on the Super Thanks icon below the video title. Your generous support helps to keep this channel going. To everyone who watches my videos and/or supports me, I offer my sincere gratitude. May God bless you.